Bioshock is an interesting game with a unique premise and a story, which I've already dissected in another video, from why capitalism needs morals to the moral decision that affects the story in this game. I will give a link at the end of the video. Let's talk about the gameplay and the rest of the package and how well it holds up. Anyways, the gameplay in Bioshock is probably the weakest part of the experience. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great experience, but it does have some problems. It's not perfect. First, it's a survival horror game that gives you way too many options regarding enemy encounters and weapons. I never felt too much like I was going to be defenseless or frustrated, even with losses from Big Daddy. Sure, but I never, like I said, felt like the helpless dread that if I run out of ammo, I'm going to be screwed. Granted, Bioshock isn't trying to be scary. Unnerving, yes. Weird and macabre, oh, definitely. But it's certainly not trying to be scary. Still, you're given a hell of a lot of ammo. And then another weakness is that death has no consequences. Except for the final boss, dying just sends you back to one of these pods. Yes, it can be annoying as hell when you have a lot of backtracking, but most enemies stay dead, and the ones you've injured, unless there's a health refill station nearby, stayed injured. So, yes, I was running low on health most of the time. I just let enemies kill me. What's the point of using even health packets when the only penalty is I go back a room and a half and have to backtrack 2 minutes, rather than spend these health packets that are better off when I have bosses or larger enemies to take care of. That said, the weapons are a lot of fun to use. Each type of weapon has a few other modes. For example, the flamethrower can spray ice or electricity. The crossbow can fire out bolts that catch on fire. And the rocket launcher has several different kinds of projectiles you can fire. There are even crafting stations to create these weird weapons. So I'll give you big time points on just some of the ingenuity that came with these weapons. But if regular firearms aren't enough to dispatch these spliced up freaks, then you can splice yourself up too with different plasmids, which you can trade in from Adam, which again you get from beating the Big Daddy and harvesting it from Little Sisters. As I said before, saving them does give you less Adam, but in the end it's only around 200 points more. It's only good for an upgrade and a half. Saving them gives you a few exclusive and powerful upgrades, so in my opinion, save them. You'll sleep better at night, and you'll actually have a lot more options towards the end of the game. Anyways, these plasmids offer some cool power-ups. They're not as strong as using your weapons, but you can have some interesting side effects to help in battle. You have the standard fire and lightning, but you also have ones where you can send out bees or just force push the hell out of people. They're a lot of fun to use. Also, as you explore Rapture, you will come across automated cameras and turrets. You can hack these by playing a game of pipes and turning them onto your side. That said, another complaint I have about the game is there is a spike in difficulty towards the end. While you still only go to a few rooms back for dying, the enemies become more bullet sponges, and the hacking game goes from child play to brutally difficulty. And the consequences for losing the hacking ability isn't that you have to try again, but rather they can send off the alarm, which will send an army of flying drones to shoot you. If you're not good at hiding, you're basically dead when this happens. There's also some good puzzle mixes and some decent backtracking around individual areas, so the game is fun to explore and even rewards exploration like a good survival horror game does. Overall, the gameplay is really fun, the weapons are good, the puzzles are great, and the plasmids are especially fun to use. However, a combination of weird difficulty spike and no punishment for death kind of leaves it a bit lacking in this area, especially when you consider just how strong the rest of the game is. Let's move on and talk about the graphics. Okay, I played through this on Steam, both the original and the remaster that they have together, and they are bundled together, and there's a good reason for it. Both versions on Steam have some unusual bugs. The remaster has points where the audio skips a few times, like a broken record, while the original version only runs at 720p. And if you try to increase the resolution to hit 1080p, it crashes, at least on my rig. Also, it did hold on to a few frames too. Out of the two, I would go with the remaster. The display screen I'm using is 13 years old and only goes up to 1080p, but it still looked better and would take a few radio conversations sounding like they're a broken record, then screen freezes, hangs, and crashes. At any rate, regardless of the resolution, the game still looks phenomenal. Since Andrew Ryan wanted to build a utopia, we get a 1930 Art Deco style all over the place. It's one of those you would have loved to hit Rapture a few years ago before the Civil War over Adam had broken out, because this place is gorgeous, or at least it used to be. But because it's isolated and underwater, you get the feeling you were trapped more so than, say, any old haunted mansion, and its effect is just great. Rapture is both extremely beautiful and extremely ugly and morbid at the same time. The splicers that you fight are still human, but they are grotesque. You could have seen them as beautiful once before they did this to themselves. But again, since they had too much of a good thing, and now they all must wear masks to cover up the fact that their faces are distorted, and if you knock them off, you see just how ugly these people really are. On top of that, corpses that have been left to rot in the street from the war before comes to show you just how much this place has fallen, and it makes Ryan seem even more like a Looney Tune when he talks about how great this place has become and how it's recovering. Again, graphics and presentation are almost perfect.
Plasmids changed everything. They destroyed our bodies, our minds. We couldn't handle it. Best friends butchering one another. Babies strangled in cribs. The whole city went to hell.
Bioshock sound is again more on the atmospheric side, which is what you would expect from this kind of game. There isn't a lot of actual background music as sounds that are going on in the environment. However, don't expect it to be quiet and only an occasional small sound in the background. On the contrary, Rapture is supposed to be a booming city, so you hear a lot of music from the 1950s, a time that is considered somewhat more innocent in American history, to go in the background. So you have to go through different places. You will hear radio songs like "How Much Is That Doggy in the Window" while you're shooting mutated people with machine guns or battling it out with wrenches. This contradiction between the innocent songs you're hearing in the background next to the acts of brutal violence you see on the screen is an interesting contradiction that just makes Rapture seem more broken and fastens your need to survive and escape this hellhole. Beyond that, you have the pre-recorded PA announcements that sound right out from the 50s, telling things like, Ryan's just rounding up and wrongfully imprisoning people is okay and the moral thing to do because these people are evil, or even describing an invention using Adam that can restore your hair. It's marvelously executed and makes Rapture hold up as more of an eerie ghost town. And at one time, this place may have been a paradise, but it has now fallen into hell.
The parasite hates three things: free mind, free will, and
So, should you check out this game from the Xbox 360 and PS3 era? The answer to that is yes. This game is going to be a classic. The political theories and ideas are grand, which I have discussed in another video. Andrew Ryan is a memorable villain, a man with great ambition, and comes close to creating utopia. What causes the war is Adam, something that can restore limbs and cure cancer, but he doesn't want to regulate or pass laws on the moral ways to harvest it. The substance becomes addicting and a war is fought over it, destroying Rapture. To retain control of what is left, Ryan just basically becomes a brutal dictator, and like a lot of brutal dictators at the end of their reign, he knows it's coming, but he deludes them that the city is fine and being rebuilt, while we, the players, are stepping over the corpses and the rubble, know the exact opposite. He and his rival Atlas make this game so memorable, and I will kindly skip over the plot twist towards the end of the game, which is also really memorable. It's $20 on Steam, and you get both the original and remastered version, but I would say this is a wish list item because I think it does routinely go on sale below $5. Even without remastering, Bioshock is still a memorable game. Now, I have never played its sequels, but according to a few colleagues, the one that goes next, it goes in the opposite direction. Where Ryan wanted in a rigid individualist society, the villain in the sequel is a collectivist. Also an idea that if you push too far and too rigidly, you can create an even more hellish dystopian society than Ryan created. I can't wait to play that when I have a time to, but that's going to be a few months from now at the very least. Let's get into a few horror games that aren't entirely as political, and if you like to see any of my videos on the Resident Evil series, please click subscribe.
Today I had lunch with the goddess. Steinman, she said. I'm here to free you from the tyranny of the commonplace. I'm here to show you a new kind of beauty. I asked her, what do you mean, goddess? Symmetry.